I think a lot of the groundwork has already been set because so much on foundational elements of cloud transformation that Srikanth and the panel talked about. Vinil, you were moderating the hyper-automation panel. Ravi and so many amazing speakers today talked about customer empathy, design thinking, and Jay Smith, as well as Srinivas from ISB. So some amazing sessions all through. We heard the last speaker also talk about customer expectations. So with that in backdrop, this topic and this panel about modern application development is taking it to the next level. So we heard about some of the foundational elements, but what's next? And the ability to innovate faster, the ability to build a high-performing organization, the ability to improve customer experiences, as we heard. And that can happen when you have these ubiquitous apps and digital channels, and application development has to keep up with that. So keeping that as a backdrop, we'll dive in, and maybe we can start with a common question, if that's okay. We'll start with you, Vani, and move around. In your context, in your great catch, by the way, in your business context, in your customer context of Tracfone, what does modern application development mean to you, and what are the key success factors that are driving the need for that modern application development?
Yeah. Great question. I can speak without mic.
No, just you have to start.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So great event so far. Thank you for the Suneratech team. Awesome opportunity. Amazing brain power I see here. My God, locked in this one room. What will happen to the world outside? All right, so thank you, Hiral, for that question and great introductions. So for Tracfone, modern app development has taught how to reinvent how our business delivers value, right? So that's how we look at it, at the modern development. So we have basically the approaches what small, developer-oriented, and networked. Okay, so we go through this design thinking process, which is nothing but creative problem solving, right? So that leads us to rapid innovation. Okay, so that's how it helped, right? So the benefits that we have seen with this modern app development at Tracfone is faster time to market, right? So how do we do that? Through speedy release cycles. We have agile teams, like Jay mentioned, 30 agile teams, and it's still running, right? So we are in that process of building more agility in our organization, right? So and then rapid innovation, obviously that is part of it, and we have been hearing this buzzword. Every single speaker was talking about it, right? So modern innovation is not, modern application development is not driven by technology. That's how we look at it, right? It is driven by customer journey. So we got to gracefully look at the needs and changes, how we, becomes a critical mandate for this customer journey. So the applications that we are going to release need to have this in their mind.
Excellent. No, that's great. So, Srinivas, why don't we move to you? We've heard about Tracfone and a little bit about Canon Medical, but not heard about Brink's. This audience might benefit. You guys manage some very large assets and cash securely. So maybe a little bit in the context of your business, how is modern application development important to you?
So Brink's is in almost 100 plus countries, right? We are into secure logistics, we move high valuables, diamonds, right? Jewelry and cash. So every day we transact and we process billions of dollars worldwide. So being said that, Brink's is a 160 plus year old company. So we do have so many applications, approximately 675 and growing, right? So that brings us a lot of challenges. We do have some of the core Canada building systems are based on COBOL, right? And again, we are also innovating. We are disrupting ourselves to meet the demand. Everybody says cash is dying, but it's not, right? So we are anticipating, and the biggest challenge our CEO has posed is, as we are disrupting ourselves in the business to meet with the demand, we have adopted and right now modern application technology, which includes Agile, Scrum Master, and also test-driven development. That is kind of giving us a good results. And also, one size doesn't fit everything. We are also coming with a hybrid approach by interfacing with the legacy application to the modern applications, right? So we are in the transformation mode, and we cannot change everything overnight, right? So that's how we are approaching. And then the testing, we are involving business and into the IT domain to understand what we do. And also, we are encouraging business to invite us into their table when they get the requirements, right? So we are not just an order takers, we are also a solution providers, and we do suggest some of the good business processes. So that's giving us a good result and a faster delivery to the products.
Awesome, that's great. So Vinil, there was that video that played before we started this panel, yes. And I think the audience is curious as to what that is and how that ties to modern application development and the role you played in it.
All right. So so the kiosk that you saw there, the cutting edge kiosk, we built that for a healthcare startup, right, called Connection from Aspire Ventures. And it's a first of its kind muscular fitness management tool, right? So used by physiotherapists, athletes, and even general people, right? And you can find those now in any of the Under Armour stores or Adidas stores that you walk in, right? You can see those kiosks there. So why is it in context and why is it important? I think when we talk about, I think you shared some good perspectives, right? When we talk about modern application development, what we are seeing is that there's no precedent when it comes to developing, new applications like this, right? There's never been a precedent, right? So what happens is then when we were building this, we were clueless, right? There didn't exist a system on which we are modernizing, right? So for me, modern application development is not modernizing, right? Modern application development is scrapping the whole thing, right? And then looking at it from a re-platforming perspective. I think, and the important thing there is that that's where design thinking kicks in, right? Unless you're extremely well aware of what your users want, right? And it's not like, for us, there's nobody to tell, what they wanted, right? So we had to imagine the experience, we had to live a day in a life of them, right? Like athletes and physiotherapists, and we had to understand a day in a life of, what their challenges are, and then come up with this kind of a design. Right? So I think that deep customer empathy is required, and that is the starting point for modern application development and not modernizing. At least that's what
excellent point, and I didn't realize it until we were talking, but one of the kiosks is actually in the flagship Under Armour store in Chicago, which I've been to with our family many times, but didn't realize that it was built with this connections platform. So that's great. So Gagan, over to you. I think Hang talked about Canon Medical Systems a little bit, and just sort of building on the health sort of theme. You guys are in the business of saving lives,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, so maybe just talk about it in your context. How this is so critical.
Yeah, so I have to agree that we are a slow entrant into this modern development application development. So we recently started experimenting with DevOps and CI/CD, and Suneratech is helping us in the automation. Like Hung mentioned, Cloud Tester, using Cloud Tester in the testing automation. So we started that journey very recently, and then two other processes that we are focusing are, like Vani mentioned and Vinil mentioned, is the customer empathy. So basically making sure the customer is heard, respected, and understood. So, we constantly remind our development teams to make sure that you and what the customer is asking for. This has helped us a lot. The customer, the user, the business community started seeing us as a partners rather than a service organization. So that's a big leap forward that we are seeing. And design thinking is another process that we started, right? So we start, again, empathize with the users, iterate, ideate, prototype it, and then trying to think out of the box solutions for them. So that is helping us a lot to foster this relationship with the business users. So they're helping them go to the market and do these products.
No, excellent. I mean, maybe we'll stay with you, Gagan, and then go in reverse order this time. But there's 3 or 4 sort of themes emerging, and I think you heard some of this all through the day. But that was not meant to be part of the panel, but if it's relevant, we can still play. Okay, all right, maybe not. So, could be. No, because Mr. Raghavendra said you may not have a toothbrush, but you'll have a mobile device for sure, right? So, in his video. So it's that way. So there are 4 themes emerging. Let me sort of maybe tie it together, and then we'll go in reverse order so that each of you can share your perspectives on one of them. Continuous delivery and DevOps, you mentioned that. Cloud native architectures in terms of how these applications are built. And Vinil, you're the expert in that, so maybe you can talk about that a little bit. And we hit on design thinking, product mindset. I think Uttam earlier called it functions. I call it consumable services that really need to be delivered, with the users in mind that Ravi was mentioning earlier. So product mindset, design thinking. And one very critical element which has been also a theme is culture, people, structure. And I think you're driving some of that, Srinivas. So maybe we'll go in sort of that order. We can start with Gagan in terms of continuous delivery, DevOps, and that whole sort of bit of traditional to the more newer ways of approaching DevOps, right?
Sure. So I think traditionally IT organizations were split based on the technical capabilities, mostly a front-end developer, back-end developer, DBA, sysadmin. But this newer modern application development tends to go away from that model. It promotes preferring the notion of having smaller development teams, basically, and making sure that they own the product throughout the life cycle, even in production. And we make our development teams believe that, hey, you build it, you run it, with a clear ownership that will actually make day-to-day development a lot of fun. And actually that freedom gives them a spark of creativity to do the development.
Because smaller teams,
more
agile.
Yes, more agile.
Got it. So, Vinil, your thoughts on how microservices architectures or cloud native architectures are playing a role?
Right. So let me go back to that example of connection, right? So when we were building this kiosk, right, there were about 65 scanners in that, right? Taking pictures, measuring temperature, getting your weight, right? Scanning your movement. So we used to get about 120,000 data points under 20 seconds, right? When you step in there. Right? Now, so that required unlimited scale, right? I can't process that data anywhere else. So it was cloud native by design for us. It was not accidental that we were not looking at making it cool. Right? So it was a necessity for us, right, to have that unlimited scale. That was one. Second, we were when we talked about building this whole thing, it was 0 to 60 for us. So that means in 60 days, we had to ship the first product out, right? And that needed a lot of these building blocks, right? That we needed. They had to be assembled extremely fast, right? So again, AWS gave us that capability. We used of their 120 services. I think we used close to about 34 right? Including data lake and, databases and, messaging services and you name it, right? So that gave us the kind of velocity, right? So the first aspect is scale. The second is velocity in assembling things. Right? So I think those two, kind of form the most important drivers for us to look at cloud native.
Awesome. So taking that forward, Vani, I mean, we heard from a couple other speakers on Tracfone, but your views and perspectives on this customer empathy and how you're delivering product, right? Because design thinking is still an input, but in the end, it's the users. And I think Jay used an excellent word, ubiquitous connectivity, right? Which is what you're delivering, right, to your customers.
Yeah. So Mark Anderson, the co-author of Mosaic, has famously said, software is eating the world, right? So how do we overcome that problem, right? Design thinking plays a very important role in the modern application development, right? So as I said before, it's basically creative problem solving, which leads to a rapid innovation. So where do the rapid innovation kicks in, right? So it's the modular architecture, right, which multiple UIs will be needing to access or consume our data and APIs. So we need to make sure we have consistent APIs and consumable data without having to create multiple services, right? That's where the microservices also kicks in, which is a big part of modern application development. Now, one other advantage that we also have benefit is the reduced cost, right? Because of this modular architecture, because of this going into cloud, we can offload our resources. We can over-provision. We can just look at the cost of, are we over-provisioning or lowering our idle resources? Are we using, spending money in consuming the idle resources? All these analysis can be done upfront using this modern app development. One other thing that I like about this is it's development oriented, right? So you are empowering the developer to experiment and fail fast, get up and then release the applicable components, not the entire application. You're releasing only a part of the components, so the developer is never scared or hold back his, thoughts. So that is some empowerment that you're giving the developer, so he or she are going to be willing to try out new things, in this speedy release cycles. So that's where our rapid innovation kicks in. So Tracfone has gone through this journey, and we have a lot more way to go, but we are getting there, like Jay said.
On the right direction.
Yep.
Excellent. So the last part of this, which I think is still the most critical, is that whole leadership, culture, structure, how that needs to be aligned. And some of the things you're doing at Brink's, Srinivas, I think are leading the way. So maybe we can share those experiences.
So for any change, right, anything what we have to do, we have to get a leadership buy-in first, right? That would be the primary thing. And the second is a change management aspect. So we have we do get a lot of demand, and we just jump onto the implementation mode. We don't even think about the change management. And also we need to understand how to engagement from the business side as well as the implementers of the team, IT team. So culture is the one which is very difficult to change, and also the perception also. Most of the times, right, there are a couple of examples I can give. We've been using PeopleSoft for almost 15 to 18 years. Right, and it's our CIO wanted to change it to Workday, right? So initially it was a big resistance from everybody, and it's heavily customized, it cannot be done. But we adopted a policy, right, and then we started doing a marketing campaign and engaged the resistors first, right? So we got their buy-in first, and within 10 months we implemented US and Canada, and we went live, right? And we used a partner, right? But again, without the help of the business as well as the IT team members, we would not have done that. So being said that the communication, training, and communication is the key.
Awesome. So we'll do maybe things a little bit differently. I have one final question, closing comment type of round. But before we do that, we'll open it up for one or two questions and see some interactions from the audience. Any questions? And then we'll do a final wrap up towards the end. So there's a book called Accelerate, which I don't know if anyone has read, but it's a very popular book in terms of science of DevOps. And it's sort of heart of the whole test automation and evolution to quality engineering. And it gives a famous example that, hey, if you measure development teams on throughput and operational teams on stability, then what you're going to get is bad code, and each one will be pointing at each other, right? So I think Cloud Tester, in a very unique way, brings that bridge between the development and operational teams while automating, with model-based testing methods, right? Not just test data management, but test execution and quality engineering. And so I think some of the customers who are leveraging it, and I was speaking to some of the folks, even earlier, I think the possibilities are immense on that.
Yeah, I think maybe if I can answer that question, right? So from a cloud tester perspective, I think I think the weakest link in the supply chain is testing when it comes to development, because your dependency is not just on IT, it's on user acceptance. So what we've done is we've used the phenomenon of scriptlessness. So that means we remove the traditional testing method of creating test cases and maintaining those test cases. So there is no requirement for knowledge of test script language. So basically eliminating the need to write test cases and maintaining those has been completely removed. So now you can give the complete power of testing to IT without having users to access. So that's a phenomenal platform for rapid application development.
Absolutely. Any other questions, thoughts? Anyone wants to share their perspectives on modern apps, modern development? I think we need some alcohol and beer flowing very soon. The tea and coffee may not work for too long.
Alcohol, I don't know, but we can help you with some tea.
Okay, so maybe we'll do a closing sort of round, and it's a little bit about measurement and metrics, and maybe at least a couple of perspectives on this would be great. This book I was mentioning about talks about some of these metrics, but I'm curious about in your businesses, right? Maybe we can start with you, Srinivas. What is critical success factor in terms of measurement? Because you can measure anything. I don't know if the other Srinivas is here still, but he gave a great example that if you are going off the cliff, then you don't want to accelerate, right? So you don't want to measure the wrong things. So in your business, what are you measuring?
So customer satisfaction is the key, right? So what we deliver, right? Customer satisfaction and adoption of the product by the customer. And that's one key success factor. And defect-free delivery, right? Practically it's not impossible, right? Practically, sorry, it's not possible, but it is achievable, right? And also like what we think in our Brink's philosophy is, we cannot plan for a perfect delivery or perfect landing. There will be a turbulence, but it will be an acceptable as long as it's not a crash landing. So what I think is a successful implementation or a success to any effort, right? And also do not fear for a failure, right? If you have a good intention, failure is accepted, right? So and accept the failure and go to a repetitive process of fixing it and deploying it.
So the change sort of fail rate and also the ability to restore service, right?
Yes.
With failure.
With a failure, right? So exactly. Another couple of examples, right? We have done, again, it's no single solution fits the scenario, right? Each project. So I manage like finance, HR, EDW, and integration. So I apply different rules to different projects and different times. And also have to deal with, right, for success is we are implementing a global HR, as I said, global finance. Each country is different. So you have to understand the customer needs and local needs and try to manage. And one rule what we have done to the success factor is build versus buy. If it is a byproduct, do not customize. Right? That will like, give you a halfway to the success.
Absolutely. Vani, how about you? Metrics, or what would you consider success?
I will also go by customer, having a seamless experience, giving a seamless experience to the customer should be my measuring factor, because that's our main primary business, right? But how do I make sure customer is happy? I release these products with quality. As you all heard, Jay said, first day of his work, the issues that he has faced, and I still remember that day at 7 o'clock he was at work writing down all the steps and the action items and everything. I was so impressed by the way he dealt with that problem. Didn't matter if it was first day or 100th day. So that's where my success factor lies in, right? So what he did was, just a little sidetrack on that note, he gave us a goal called BHAG, right? So we used to have a lot of incidents, clock resetting incidents, no good experience for the customer. So he told us 30 days, there are no incidents, clock resetting incidents, like, right? So I'm going to throw you a party, both the entire IT, 600 people, right? So we kind of took that very seriously. Initially it was like, oh, 30 days, that's impossible, we cannot make it. So as the day went by, everybody started very curious and very interested to find, oh, well, how many more days we still have without having an incident, right? Finally we made it. It is called a big, hairy, audacious goal. We made that goal and he threw us a party. Great party at Wharf, Miami. If anyone visits Miami, please don't forget to go to that place. Awesome place.
BHAG.
BHAG. Big, hairy, audacious goal.
Big, hairy, audacious.
That's what he did. So that'll be my success.
Okay, great. What I think Jay called out, so you have people here who are saving lives, right, with Canon medical systems, ubiquitous connectivity, right, and securely transporting cash, which is very, very important. And the person who's developing all these solutions to make all these things happen. So what great, better
Amazing.
purpose than that. Thank you very much.